Hello, and thank you for joining us today from everywhere in the world. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I am happy to be here with you today, though again, the subject, as it has been for the last more than a month, is not the best of news. But we will speak with you about that in just a moment. First, we want to thank everyone who is joining us from anywhere in the world. We want to thank you for being part of this live stream, talking about the news that is affecting us all. Obviously, we are speaking about Afghanistan and the consequences of Afghanistan. Most importantly, we are looking for your voices. We want to hear what you have to say about what is happening in Afghanistan today. What do you have to say about the consequences and the costs of Afghanistan at this time? Because there are plenty of pundits that are out on MSNBC, CNN, the major news media, even on YouTube and other social media sites. But too often, we don't get to hear what you, the public, the people, have to say. Now, we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in free speech. Even for countries that do not believe in free speech, we do. So if your government doesn't believe in it, if the internet overlords don't believe in it, we do. And that's why we are here today, to hear your voices, to hear your comments. We want to see your chats, your tweets, your messages, and your phone calls coming in at 607-242-1582 to tell us what you think is going on in the world. Hello, John. It is good to see you, and I'm glad to see that you've joined us today. Hopefully, you'll decide to call in and let us know some of your thoughts about what is going on in Afghanistan. Now, let's be very clear. We understand, folks, that in Afghanistan, the United States, the British, the United Kingdom, Australia, France, Germany, they have all left Afghanistan. All of the NATO forces have abandoned that nation. That is a fact. The United States were the last to leave, and the United States left behind. This is a fact. Hundreds of Americans in Afghanistan. Individuals who did not choose to be left behind, who did not choose to stay in Afghanistan. That is a fact. It has been admitted by the Biden administration, and as much as Joe Biden will go on national and international news and say otherwise, the Biden administration has been admitting this since August 18th. We have a call coming in. Hello, and thank you for joining us here at No Sim.
And as much as Joe Biden will go on national...
Oh, you got a little bit of an echo. You got to turn down the live stream so that you can hear us.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a delay going on there, so I want to make sure that we can hear you clearly.
Okay.
And
turn it down.
No problem. So this is No Soundbites Allowed. I am Michael Voss. With whom am I speaking?
Hi, Mike. John Cordisco. How are you?
Hello, John. It's good to see you here today with us talking about, let me move myself properly, talking about what's going on today. So tell me, John, what's on your mind?
Well, I just did an episode on my channel concerning the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and I compared it to, people get divorced all the time, and you could make it as painless as possible in a difficult situation, or you could do it 10 times worse and make it 10 times harder. And Biden did exactly that. He made it 10 times harder, and then he turned around and blamed Trump. Now, Trump has his faults. He has his positive things. But you know what, though? It's him. I mean, you're a military guy. You know a little bit more than I do. Why would you close an airport when you're trying to get out thousands and tens of thousands of people? It makes zero sense. And then on top of that, he made the statement, well, the Taliban will never take over the country. There's almost zero chance they'll take it over. And then turns around and says, well, it's Trump's fault that they were in their strongest position since 2001. You can't have it both ways. I mean, what's with these guys?
Well, there's a lot of questions here. Now, I do want people to know, I do know that the internet overlords are causing some difficulty if you're watching the feed. please bear with us, and we are going to get your voices no matter what, just as we are from John. So let me address some of what you said, John. And this is about hearing what you have to say, you, the public. So, yes, we've heard him say that it's President Trump's fault. We've heard him say that it's the Afghanistan people's fault. We've even heard him say today in his news announcement 3 hours ago that he said that it was the American citizens' fault, that he reached out, that the State Department reached out over 19 times, and they wanted to stay, that they chose to stay. Even though we have statements from the Biden administration, from, I believe it was Secretary of State Blinken, who had mentioned, no, they couldn't get to the airport. This was not their choice.
The only airport. The other one they closed.
Yeah, and that's based on military standards. You would never do that. It makes no sense.
Of course not. I mean, what you used to be in the military. What military organization would leave citizens behind first before they left?
Yeah, no one would. And that's one of the things. They intentionally, and this is something we first noticed on August 18th, as we reported on this show, that General Miley first made the statement, Americans that want to leave will be evacuated. They said that several times. We've heard Joe Biden say that in several speeches. Americans that want to leave. We've heard the entire administration say that. And yet, not only was that a fallacy to start with, it's also not true because, as reported today by the Biden administration, by news media, they did not get every American who wanted to leave.
Well, here's the funny part. When did they start getting hold of the Americans to leave? Now, if I was President Biden, I would have started getting hold of them January 21st, the day after I was sworn in. But they waited and they waited and they waited. I'm wondering if they effed up on purpose. I wonder. I really and truly do.
Well, even if, here's the thing. He knew on January 21st, Joe Biden was busy putting troops into Syria. That is a fact. It was one of his first actions once he got into office, was to increase the number of troops in Syria and therefore increase the amount of tensions in the Middle East. That is a fact. It was reported internationally, it was denied in the United States, and then it was confirmed by the U.S. news media. And for anyone who's only going by U.S. news media standards, you're not hearing everything that's going on. We have, for many months now, been reporting on information based on credible international news sources like Deutsche Welle out of Germany, the BBC out of the UK, the India Today out of India. Many countries have been reporting this. There is a problem, and it is a big problem. And the biggest problem I have today, and this is the thing that gets me upset. I don't care if it was Trump's idea. I don't care at this moment. It doesn't matter if it was a bad or good execution by Joe Biden. We left hundreds of Americans. There are dozens, possibly hundreds of British who are confirmed in Afghanistan behind enemy lines at this moment. They are being headhunted by ISIS. That is a fact. At least ISIS, if not also by Al-Qaeda and several other smaller terrorist organizations and groups.
Well, they made it easier for him by giving him the list of everybody. Geez, that was really smart.
Again, that's another part of the problem. We told them who are the Americans who were there, who were the Afghani people who worked with us and helped over the last 2 decades, and we are seeing evidence come out in reporting internationally that these people are being systematically killed on a regular basis. And yet we hear from the Biden administration, the Taliban are now our international partners and that we have to trust them to make our people safe. I don't understand it.
Yeah, the funny part is they're saying, well, Trump would have done this, Trump would have done that. Well, you really don't know what Trump would have done. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. When the man says he's going to do something, he does it, whether you like it or not, is a different issue. If
Well-
you screwed with us trying to get Afghans out and our own people out, we will bomb you into the Stone Age, and he meant it. And so for 18 months, not one American casualty. They should have been getting people out January 21st, slowly but surely. Taliban advanced, and what happened? Nothing.
Well, here's the thing, and I have to ask this. And John, people may not be familiar with you or your channel. You're a little bit older than I am, so you're an older American. In your memory, have you ever heard of a United States operation, a military operation, a war, where the United States purposefully and willingly sacrificed American citizens behind enemy lines and just left them there?
No.
Has that
I've
ever
never
happened?
I've never heard of that ever, which makes you wonder, did they do it on purpose?
Well, we know it was done on purpose. They've been telling us since August 18th that they were going to leave Americans behind. They said,
But they had February, March, April, May, June, July. They had it all. And they did nothing. So I'm wondering, where is the top brass? Where are the Joint Chiefs? Where's that one lieutenant colonel said, did you throw your rank on the table and say, Mr. President, this is going to be a disaster? Nobody said anything. All they got was crickets.
You're talking about Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, who has resigned his commission with the United States Marine Corps after being removed from command for denouncing the lack of leadership in his opinion. And like Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, I have to say it is correct that he was removed from command because he did break the UCMJ.
Yes, and he agreed with that. He was a man, and he stood up to it. He says, that's my punishment, and I deserve it, and I would have done the same thing.
Right.
That's a sign of a man.
And that doesn't take away, he was right. He was right. We have leaders like, as we saw today, for the first time, we saw Joe Biden finally have some energy because it wasn't evening yet, and he probably got his medicines. I don't know. But there's a remarkable difference between the fire and brimstone he was trying to put out today in his press release with an afternoon meeting versus Thursday when he had an evening press conference and he could barely get his words out. And
it's kind of like it's funny. It's kind of like we're young once and got into bar fights, and then when they break up the fight, and you're already 2 hours later, you're home. You show how tough you are. Well, it's a little late.
Let me ask you a question, John.
Sure.
Again, as an older American, we've never seen a case where a United States president or the military have willingly and actively allowed American citizens to be in harm's way, to actively abandon them on a field of danger.
No,
let me ask.
I've never had it, and I know what Trump would have done. He would have sent out teams of really elite troops to pick these people up.
Well, we can't.
And if anybody messed with them in Cabal, he would bomb them into the Stone Age, and they all knew it.
Well, you know what? I'm not even going to focus on what would another president have done. We have no idea because there is no other president in place at this time. So let's go with what we do know. And let me ask you a question.
Well, I think it begs the question, who's really the president? Who's really making the call? That's what the real question is, I think.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. James, and I do see some of the comments, by the way. I did see the comment from Ann. I do see your comment, Jason. I do see your comment, Jim, and we are going to get to that. But we do have a call, so I want to address that, and you too, Dal. So let me ask you this very important question. There are now hundreds of Americans, and I believe the number may be thousands, and I'll explain that on this program today in detail. But I believe there are thousands of Americans, not hundreds, who are left in Afghanistan who have no way home. Let me ask you, John, as an American citizen, what do you want us to do? Should we leave those people to be attacked and eventually found by ISIS and held as hostages or killed? Should we go back in to get them? Should there be special operations? Do you believe that the Biden administration will be able to get these people home safely?
No, I don't. The vast majority, probably in the end, one way or another, they'll be home. But here's the thing: what's going to happen in between then? How many pallets of cash are we going to fly to them like we did to Iran? I mean, we left them billions and billions in guns and armaments and all kinds of. I mean, they were flying a Black Hawk over Kabul yesterday. I mean, he's painted himself into a possible situation, and then he's saying, well, this is a really hard situation. You created it. Do I think they're going to get out eventually? Probably. I'll tell you the truth. If one American is killed, it will, I mean, you think the wrath of the United States, and it won't be Biden, it'll be the American people, just as Yamamoto said in World War II, we've woken a sleeping giant. They kill one American. They torture one American. It's over for them. They think they're in the Stone Age now. They'll be bombed into non-existence.
John, I have one final question for you, and I do want to let other people be able to have a chance to speak, but please, we are looking for chats and tweets and texts as well, so we do want to hear more because we're going to continue to hear from people about this. Let me ask you, do you believe when Joe Biden has said that he had no choice, that he had to do things exactly the way that he did them, and that he had to leave these Americans behind? Do you believe him?
Well, of course not, because the reality hits you in the face so hard that he had from January 21st until last week to get him out. And for several months, he did nothing. He did nothing. So, yeah, he created an impossible situation for himself, and then they complained about how difficult it was. I mean, come on, give me a break.
No, I understand what you're saying. And again, and this, by the way, folks, is going out. We know that there are many politicians in the Congress and in many levels of government who are watching this, who are listening for your voices, both live and after the fact. So please, we want to hear your voices, and they are listening to this. Whether they tell you directly or not, we usually get a call afterwards. We usually get messages afterwards from elected officials talking about this. So they are hearing you, and we want them to hear you very clearly.
I'll leave you with this for the future of the region and our
Sure.
influence in it. If we can't keep our word to our own citizens, how is our word any good to anybody else?
That is a good question, and that is a question that has been asked repeatedly, both by international news and this program as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can't answer that. I really can't.
Well, no, I think we can. We can answer it the fact that our word right now is zero, is absolutely zero. So in the future, if anything comes on where the United States has to intervene, and we tell some of the locals to work with us, they're going to laugh and say, "What are you, stupid? I'm not going to help you guys. You guys stab in the back everybody you've ever helped. So thank you, but no thanks."
Yeah. Well, John, let me give an opportunity for a few other people to speak, because
Okay.
I want as many people to speak on this as is possible.
Well, I want to get a meme going, WWTD, and I think we know what that means.
I think we do. John,
Well, Mike, take care, and I'll listen. I'll get off and I'll listen.
No, I appreciate it, and I thank you for taking a moment to call in.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Well, folks, as you can see, you too can call in to 607-242-1582. This live stream today is about hearing nothing but your voices. I want to hear your answers to the question: do you trust the Biden administration to get the hundreds of Americans out of Afghanistan, the hundreds of Brits out of Afghanistan, safe and alive? Do you believe that this was the only choice that the American government had, to leave Americans in harm's way, something that the American government has never done before? I want to hear your comments, your chats, your tweets, your phone calls, and this is open to everyone in the world. I want to hear from the UK and our friends there who, and I know it's very late at night for them, but anyone in Europe, to tell us, what do you think about this? What do you think the consequences are? Let me go to some of the comments here. And I do see Ann, and Ann, thank you for leaving your comment with us. I do know there is a massive lag on YouTube, on Facebook, I believe. That is not coming from our system. We can do nothing about it. It show started off perfectly fine, and then instantly we got lag. We can't do anything about that. We believe it's because of the subject matter and the internet overlords not preferring this. And when I say that they don't prefer this, let me be very, very clear on what we mean. Because it is the same internet overlords that Facebook and Instagram, that the mom of one of the slain Marines, she was blanked. She was made a non-person. She was removed from Facebook and Instagram because she dared to say she did not agree with the Biden administration. She did not agree with Joe Biden and his excuse for why her son died, and that there was no other way for this to happen. The internet overlords, when they don't like the subject, they try to eliminate your voice. We have seen that with Twitter, as they have eliminated the voice of the Indian Congress, the country of India and their Congress, the United States members of Congress, 600,000 Republicans and conservative voices. We have seen this consistently, and I believe we see that right now. They don't want us to have this conversation. I desperately want to have this conversation with you. I want to hear what you think. Whether you agree with me or not, it doesn't matter. If you think Joe Biden did the right thing, if you think America had no other choice, I want to hear your voice. If you think this is the worst thing for America, I want to hear your voice. My position is very, very clear, and I want to make it very obvious for everyone who is watching this program. I said earlier today, there is only one thing to focus on today, which the news media has tried to avoid. Under the Biden-Harris administration, at least 200 Americans, and I would say thousands, and I will get to that, were left in Afghanistan because they could not get to the Kabul airport, nor did Biden care to get them. Considering the failure at every turn, many more may be in harm's way, including ally civilians from the United Kingdom, from France, Germany, Canada, and Australia, to say the least, as well as our friends and allies in the Middle East, the Israelis. So that is my position on it. But this is about your position. Do you believe I am wrong? Do you believe that Joe Biden is right? That this is worth it to end a 20-year war in this manner? And that's the key words, in this matter. It is not a choice of we either have war or we run away and leave hundreds of Americans and allies at the mercies, to call it that, mercies of ISIS and terrorists. That isn't fair. That isn't true. That isn't a real equivalence. That isn't the choice. We could have left under different circumstances. That was possible. It wasn't chosen. So let me get back to some of the other comments. James Zecca mentions that it's a sad situation this week. Afghanistan, Biden needs to resign now. The man, Joe Biden, has left Americans behind. It's unacceptable. It is a first in history that I am aware of. I am unaware of any war in any situation where Americans were left to the enemy and to fend for themselves. It's never happened before. And if someone has a citation, a credible citation where that has happened, please, I would like to be informed on that. I am unaware of it anywhere in history. Dal has mentioned, and thank you for joining us, Dal, and also thank you for your comment, Jim. Top brass is reading up on critical race theory because they want to weed out domestic wrongthinkers. That would be General Milley, who has previously said he is concerned about white rage. And his focus on white rage seems to be more of a focus than on getting Americans out of Afghanistan. And he was the one who first said that the military's mission was to get everyone out that wanted to be out. These are words they said over and over again, and I am emphasizing it because they want us to believe anyone and everyone who is left wanted to stay. And that is factually not correct. News media have interviews at this time that have proven. I think Chris Cuomo did an interview with a woman who was stranded in Kabul, could not get to the airport because the United States Embassy said, don't go to the airport. And then they flew the last plane without her, and she doesn't know she's going to be safe. That was on CNN with Chris Cuomo. So they can't say every American who wanted to get out, and they're not saying that. They're saying they left people behind. And that's the question I want to ask about. Lee, hello, Lee. Lee, a dear friend of mine, a very important man. Thank you, Lee. Lee says, just look at FDR with the Philippines in World War II for a comparison on many of these levels. And I do know, and again, I am aware, there is a lag. There is nothing we can do about it. I'm not going to let the internet overlords win. I'm going to fight through it because this subject is worth more than just the lag. Dow also mentions it's back to Bataan in Afghanistan, referencing a critical event in war history. Lee goes on to say, Austin betrayed his oath when he said they couldn't do it, that we could not get American citizens. To be exact, it was Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said that it was not possible for the American government to go outside of the airport into Kabul to get Americans and to safely bring them to the airport to evacuate them. What was not known at that time, as has been reported by the Washington Post yesterday, that the Biden administration made a deal, a very specific deal, as we reported on the show and showed you the article itself, that the Biden administration was given the ability to control all of Kabul as we had an orderly exit from Afghanistan. Not just the airport, but the entire city. And that was offered by the Taliban to the Biden administration. And the Biden administration said, no, we just want the airport. You can handle all of the other security, putting American citizens in danger and thus facilitating the ability of ISIS and others to prevent American citizens from being able to get to the airport to get out of Afghanistan. So this is the American, and this is something that Lloyd Austin lied about. And by the way, at the very same moment that Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said Americans could not go into Kabul, separate of the deal that he did not want to tell the public about, the British, the French, and the Germans were sending in special forces to get their people from Kabul to the airport. So the American government didn't do it, but the British, the French, and the Germans were doing it. And that's because the Biden administration made a deal and promised the Taliban that they wouldn't take a step out into Kabul. That's on the Biden administration, and that is a fact. So Lee goes on to say, it's what every service member does it for, that's so that civilians don't have to fear. We're supposed to see this in horror movies so they don't have to go through this. And I agree with you, Lee, because I know, if I may, Lee, I will mention, Lee is a former military personnel, and he has experienced this. I am former military. We know many other members in the military. The whole point is we, the military, endanger our lives so civilians don't have to. It seems the Biden administration does not understand that. Ann Field says, after Biden's actions, I don't know if the United States will ever recover on the international stage. Are we on the decline as a superpower? This would never have happened under President Trump. What we can say is, and it has been reported, and I do have a couple of articles prepared for this from the Euro News. On August 24th, the G7 leaders failed to convince Biden to extend Afghanistan's troop withdrawals. You see, at the time, on August 24th, the members of the G7, NATO, our allies, knew they could not get all of their people out of Afghanistan on time, nor could the United States. And because of the arbitrary time frame created by Joe Biden, they would have to abandon their people. They were desperately asking Joe Biden extend the timeline, since it was the agreement between Joe Biden and the Taliban unilaterally. It relied on Joe Biden's word. He had to make that statement. Joe Biden turned his back on our allies. So is that going to have an impact on the international stage? I'm not sure. Is it going to affect our international allies to question whether or not we will support them? Like, as an example, Taiwan. Will the United States protect Taiwan versus China if we're not willing to protect our own people in Afghanistan? I don't know. And what does the world think about that? It's a very good question. Thank you, Ann. Poppy mentions, hello, Poppy. We will find out there are thousands left, not hundreds. And Poppy, I agree with you. To address that very quickly, let me also show you folks this. This is a comment from August 23rd. August 23rd from the Seattle Times. Again, I am going by not only major news sources, but also left-leaning news sources where I can. And it states, how many Americans are there waiting to leave Afghanistan? The U.S. isn't sure, but here's what the U.S. did say at that time. American officials estimated Tuesday that 10,000 to 15,000 U.S. citizens were in Afghanistan. Major General William Taylor of the Pentagon's Joint Staff said Saturday that about 2,500 Americans had been evacuated since August 14th, the day before the Taliban took Kabul. If that is correct, 2,500, we know that, as reported by the White House today, there were, and by Joe Biden, 5,500 Americans were evacuated. Out of 10,000, going by the minimum estimate that came from the White House, from the Biden administration on August 24th, just a week ago, we find out that there would be something like 4,500 American citizens that are missing. And by the way, it wasn't just the Seattle Times. Every world paper, every news media organization around the world reported consistently since August 15th, if not before then, that 10 to 15,000 Americans were in Afghanistan. We know that the Nazarene Fund, which was a private group funded by Glenn Beck and other millionaires, Christians, trying to save Christians, mostly Afghans, were not able to get 5,000 American citizens. They got 5,000 Afghani people out of Afghanistan, Christians. We know that the Pineapple Express, a group of private citizens, former members of the military, former Green Berets, went into Afghanistan and they saved some Americans and some Afghani citizens and got them out, got them to the airport safely. Even if we look at those numbers, it does not equal the 4,500 minimum that was provided to us by the Biden administration, that same administration that today tells us there's 200-ish, if not a bit more, hundreds of Americans who are behind lines, and they're not even counting how many British, how many Germans, French, and others. And if anyone from overseas can tell me what the latest estimate is, I know that the Vice Admiral of Forces in the United Kingdom has admitted there are dozens of British citizens who are still in Afghanistan. I don't know the full number for the overseas, but there are hundreds of people, possibly, and I'm saying it's thousands of people who have been left. Let me continue with the comments. I'm going to try and catch up, folks. And I do know there is a massive delay. I cannot do anything about that. You can still call in 607-242-1582. The phone line is on. Regardless of the delays, you will be heard. Lee mentions that the Taliban still has Twitter. That's right. The Taliban has Twitter. The mother of a Marine who died because she was critical of the Biden administration, she is a non-person. She was removed from Facebook and Instagram. But the Taliban, who are killing at this moment, they are raping and killing gay men and women. They are literally killing women for not cooking the Taliban meals. They are punishing women for being able to read and to have a job. They are marrying off 15-year-old girls to grown men, 40-year-old men. that Taliban, that very same Taliban that is now labeled an international partner of the United States, yeah, they have access to Twitter. Does that seem fair? Does that seem like there's a bias there that Twitter will remove, that these internet overlords will remove a grieving mom, but they will let the Taliban, who are committing atrocities, they'll let them on? It just doesn't make any sense. You're right, Lee. Dow mentions that even in my generation growing up, we were taught Americans stick together and leave no one behind in harm's way. If there is to be a sacrifice made, it is chosen by the individual just as we live. We've seen that. It's in movies. It is ingrained. It is American culture. It is a serious statement that no one is left behind. We all go or we all stay. We've seen it in movies. We've seen it in books. We've seen it in historical documents. We have seen this from our veterans everywhere. I don't understand this. Greg, thank you for joining us, Greg. Greg mentions this grumpy old fool needs to go. By the way, folks, if you are wondering, and I do advise, reach out to your local member, whoever your congressman is, whoever your senator is. I would say reach out to your governor and your members of your state assemblies and let them know this very simple fact. There is, it's 18 USC section 115. Treason, sedition, and subversive activities. This is part of the United States Code, and I'm showing you this from the House. And links will be in the description after the show. And it states in there, section 2381, that treason is defined as whoever owning allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death or be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title not less than $10,000 and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. Joe Biden, and by his direct orders, has abandoned American citizens. I would consider that being an enemy of the United States, to leave American citizens in harm's way, knowing that there are terrorists who are head hunting each and every one of them. That is an enemy of the United States. To say that we have provided over 600,000 rifles and guns and ammunition for all of those firearms, not to count the armored personnel carriers, not to count the helicopters and aircraft. We're talking about thousands upon thousands of vehicles and arms and billions upon billions. It's $85 billion estimated in munitions and supplies to the Taliban, turning them instantly overnight from a bunch of guys who were in a cave, fighting in a cave, into an actual army in the world. They are now a world power. The Taliban is now effectively a world army because of the United States, because of Joe Biden running away and leaving the keys that were there. Yes, yesterday, on August 30th, he destroyed about 100 different vehicles and some planes. He had already left thousands of them, as well as 600,000 rifles and ammunition. He supplied the enemy with weapons and with supplies and food that they never had before. And now he's talking about doing international trade, commerce with the Taliban, providing it international funding. This is a bunch of guys who are living in caves. They're used to running around in caves in the middle of a desert. They had no money, and now they're going to be receiving billions of dollars. How is that not aid and support for our enemy, a group of people who would kill and have killed American citizens for 2 decades? It is treason, and I would suggest reach out to your member of Congress and tell them that if you agree with me. But if you do not agree with me, and that is perfectly fine, this is a freedom of speech. This is a podcast about you saying what you believe. If you think I am completely wrong, tell me. if you think that Joe Biden has done a good job, if you agree with MSNBC, who have lauded what Joe Biden has done, I want to bring this up so you can see this, because I'm not making this up. It's, where is it? There it is. This is MSNBC. Today, MSNBC, Joe Biden ended the war in Afghanistan after 20 years. That's a big deal. That's right. They're very happy. As of Tuesday evening, Biden has done something that 3 previous presidents either wouldn't or couldn't. He ended the longest war in American history. That they're very happy about this. They go on in this article to say, President Joe Biden didn't lose the war. Joe Biden didn't lose the war. It was lost in October of 2001 under President Bush. It's Bush's fault. It's Trump's fault. America's longest war is over, and it was ugly. But this isn't Joe Biden's fault. Joe Biden ended it. They're happy. So maybe you agree with that, maybe not. I don't know. And I want to hear your voices, folks. Please remember, you can call on 607-242-1582. It's faster than typing, and it should be able to be seen even better. I want to hear from you anywhere in the world. Jan, who is just on the program, he was speaking at the very start, thanks us for the opportunity to voice his concerns and opinions, and we thank him for calling into the program and speaking with us. He mentions that Biden had 222 days to get this right, from January 21st until August 31st, and I would say Joe Biden failed. If you think I'm wrong, again, we are open. We are not like Twitter or Facebook or any of the internet overlords. We're not trying to censor you. I want to hear your voice. If you think this is a good day for America, if you think it's a good thing that Americans have been left to fend against the... Hang on. Hello, and thank you for calling into the program. This is No Soundbites Allowed. Whom may I say is speaking?
Michael, it's Lee.
Lee, my friend, how are you?
Pissed off.
So am I. That's why I'm doing this today.
Well, the thing that bothers me is, you know me. I was just a dumb bastard that got blown up a lot.
I know.
I wear scars and other people wear scars.
I know you do.
How hard would it have been, January 21st to say, hey, starting May 1st, we're going to start the evacuation flights. If your ass ain't on a plane by August 1st.
He could have done that. It could have been real easy for him to say through the embassy, just tell people in Afghanistan, you got to get out, and you got to get out now. Start now. Don't wait to the end. He could have said that. He didn't.
Yeah. And then, the commander of CENTCOM telling them that, yeah, we don't want Kabul, we just want the airport. These guys have tried to do it in the most lackadaisical, politically woke way that they could. Instead of putting on their big girl panties and saying, look, we screwed up, but we're going to fix it. And we're going to stay a few extra days. And if we have to, we're going to send in some extra planes with some fellas, because if we can put 26,000 troops to guard Congress, well, fuck, we can do some. Sorry, I didn't mean to drop that in.
It's all right. It's all right.
You'd think we could spare a few people to, protect Americans that might be worth something versus politicians.
Yeah, you're right. We had 26,000, over 26,000 troops that went immediately to D.C. to stop Americans from their American government, to separate us. And we barely could get 6,000 into Afghanistan. Let me ask you this. It's an important question, Lee. If Joe Biden on, forget the 15th, let's say last week Thursday, when we saw our brothers and sisters in the service, 13 members, 12 Marines, and a member of the Navy Corpsmen, one, and two of the British adults and a British child. When they all died, along with hundreds of Afghani people, if he came out and said, "My God, I am so sorry. I could not have expected this. I wasn't prepared for this. I failed. Let me tell you, American people, I apologize, and I will make this better. I'm going to get everyone out. It's too dangerous. I want to get all of the Americans out." If he had said that, just that, would you have forgiven him? Would you be angry now?
No. Hell, if they said right now that they put up an internet channel and said, "Hey, $20 subscription, and we're going to let you watch us blow up shit with the drone strikes, taking out equipment parks and things, and taking out the aircraft left behind," I'd be going, hell, I'll pay the $20.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would too.
At least recoup some of the costs. Do it like American Idol. If you want to vote for so and so, text 111, text 222, and choose what target they blow up, and $2 a vote.
Let me ask you something. Go ahead.
When it hits 50,000, that's when you blow something up.
That's one way to solve the taxes. It's like a telethon. We need $5,000 more donations, and then we blow up the ammo dump. And you know what? I'd watch that. But let me ask.
Hell yes.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, Lee. People who are listening in, they may not be aware. But I do know you personally, so I do know this. You've had experience in the Middle East. We don't have to go into details. You've been there. You have served. You served to the fullest extent that a person could without giving their life, in my opinion. Let me ask you, do you believe that it is, with the Taliban now having forget about the rocket launchers, the mortars, the howitzers, the armored personnel carriers, the helicopters, throw that all out. Let's forget about that. The Taliban now has 600,000 small arms. That means AR-15s and handguns and so forth, and more than enough munitions for all of that.
Now they've got M16s and M4s. AR-15s are weapons of war. Remember?
Well, I know, but I'm trying to. This is public. The general public may not realize that, so I'm trying to make sure everyone understands what we're talking about, what kind of firearms we're talking about. But yes, we're talking about the military grade.
We're going to see them come across our southern border at some point, along with explosives. But the most damaging thing of it all, Michael,
yeah,
is the communications equipment that was left behind, the encryption systems that are now compromised.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think Russia, China aren't sitting there with suitcases full of cash going, "Hey, we'll take that," because they can now pretty much compromise most of the communications equipment we have?
I understand, and I am working in communications in the military. I understand how bad this is. But let me ask you something, Lee, because a lot of people may not be familiar with this. Joe Biden has said today that we're going to put economic pressure on the Taliban, and that's going to help us get our American citizens back. You just mentioned that China, Russia, Iran would be more than happy to pay to buy for our communication systems so that they can cripple the United States military. Let me ask you something. Do you know about war in the Middle East? Do you think they care, besides selling off whatever piece they have right in front of them, getting a couple $100 right in front of them, do you think they care about international trade? Has that ever been something that you've known, that you've heard or experienced?
Michael, their average annual income is like $400 for the entire country. Do you really think that international trade is a concern for them? I mean, are you going to be buying Afghani farm products anytime soon? No.
No, I'm not going to buy sweaters because it says, Taliban alpacas. No, I'm not. I'm not going to buy an alpaca sweater from the Taliban. No, not at all.
And so, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. It's the thing they understand is brute force.
See, and no, I agree with you.
With the intelligence assets we have, everything, put the Taliban leadership on notice. Any harm comes to Americans, guess what? As soon as we find out one of you guys is going away, that we're going to drop a hellfire on you, or a harpoon, or whatever the hell's going to blow up and turn them into a grease smear on the pavement. I mean, I'm really not particular.
No, I understand. Neither am I. I know you're. Go ahead.
Let them know that if you do this, there will be consequences, and you will pay them.
We've heard Joe Biden say that he's going to get all the members of ISIS that were responsible for killing our brothers and sisters in the service last week, Thursday. He's promised that he's going to get every American, and if any harm comes to them, that he is going to use the full force of the American military to take out those terrorists. Do you believe him?
No. I have absolutely no faith in him. He, Secretary Austin, all of them betrayed their duty as leaders.
Well, that's what I believe. That's why I showed the description of the treason as for the United States Code, Code 18 USC. Wait a minute. It was 18 USC Chapter 115, Section 2381, which will be in the description afterwards, folks. Yeah, I think it is treason.
The other thing I'd like to point out, when I was in Iraq, we lost 2 soldiers to Al Qaeda in Iraq in June 2006. Tucker and Menchaca. When those 2 men went missing, the Army had the assets in place that they flooded the area with 5,000 troops for 2 men. And what really makes me mad is I know a veteran here in the Valley that served under General Milley as a battalion commander in Iraq.
Okay.
Prior to that. But if that's the Army policy, why isn't it, if that's the policy for 2 soldiers, why isn't it the policy for thousands of citizens?
I wish I could answer that. I honestly cannot answer that, and I'm angry that I can't answer why our government isn't treating every American, civilians in particular. It's one thing for you and I. We served. We swore the oath. We pledged our lives and our blood and our bodies. And many of us, not myself personally, but many of the military have given all of that and more. And yet we're looking at, we did this so the civilians would never get hurt. Why is Joe Biden putting civilians in harm's way? I don't understand it. I can't explain it. And I'm upset that I even have to consider it.
Exactly. But, the other thing that really annoys me about all of this, Michael.
What's that?
you have Jeff Bezos.
Hmm.
He spent $100 million to launch himself into space in his mother's vibrator.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
But, with Amazon's fleet of planes, everything, they were talking about calling up the Civil Reserve Fleet or whatever the hell it's called.
Right. Right.
What kind of a person has that kind of capability and doesn't say, not because I'm not saying he had to do it for free. Even if he called the government and said, look, you guys cover the costs and the planes are yours, or you provide the fuel and make sure that my crews will have something to eat, and we'll help.
He could
I
have.
mean,
He could have said that easily. Could have.
What kind of a pathetic human being, knowing that so many thousands of lives are in danger, and this goes for all the airlines. They've been complaining about the fact that they want government bailouts, all this. But did you hear any of them step up to say, hey, we're going to help ease the burden on the military crews? And,
They didn't volunteer it. I can tell you that. They did not volunteer.
They didn't say, you gave us all those bailout dollars. Hey, how about we'll do this to make it up? I mean, I'm sorry, but... And then, like, Eric Prince and his merry band of scumbags.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get you out for $6,500 a piece.
Right. And that's with Blackwater, for people who don't know. The private defense contractor offered $6,500 per person to get them out of Afghanistan prior to the final departure of U.S. troops. Meanwhile, the Nazarene Fund, we're doing it. It was paid for. Glenn Beck and others had paid for that. And there were the Operation Pineapple Express that did it. They're former vets who did it for free.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, I don't know if Trump owns any airlines anymore or not, because I don't pay attention.
I don't believe he does.
But, any of these guys that had the resources
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'm not surprised that Joe Biden has done this. I didn't expect he'd Benghazi thousands. I mean, I feel like between Ida, and what he's done in Afghanistan, he's combined some of the worst events of the last 4 or 5 presidencies.
In 7 months. Yeah.
It's like Saigon, Tehran combined, then throwing Grenada, some Iran-Contra for weapons, and we'll throw in Ida to relive Katrina, and maybe a little Black Hawk Down for some extra spice.
I know.
I mean, that's just the month of August.
I know.
I thought 2020's doomsday bingo each month between COVID and murder hornets and all the other crap was...
No, I know it's incredible. Lee, let me ask you one last question, and then I want to free up the line in case other people want to call in too. And I do appreciate, and I thank you, my friend, for taking a moment to share some of your thoughts. Let me ask you, do you think the news media has been honest with the American people, the U.S. news media, about what's going on?
No.
Okay. Well, a lot of people think they are.
CNN came out the other day that their reporter interviewed somebody 2 weeks ago from ISIS-K's leadership that they were just waiting for a chance. After 13 of our brothers and sisters, and I'll throw this in to show what it kind of did to me in turmoil. My 20-year-old son came home from Iraq 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that, honestly, being a parent and seeing what he did at Dover, I have to admire those parents for somebody not knocking him on his old ass for checking his watch.
I was going to bring that
Because
up. Yeah, insulting.
it was insulting. You know, he tried bringing up his son. You know, his son served in Iraq as a JAG lawyer. After Iraq, he came home and got brain cancer. That's not the same as the Taliban, ISIS, Haji, whatever you want to call them, blowing up your child with a suicide vest.
Not even close. No, not even close.
I've lived under that threat. I've spent the last few months living under the dread of it happening to my own son. And to see him disrespect all of those soldiers at that ceremony, all those Marines, the corpsman, the Army sergeant that lost his life,
Mm-hmm.
their families, to disrespect them that way, because he goddamn well had the time to get them killed, but he doesn't have the time to pay them the respect they earned and deserve.
It's I don't have the words for how disgusted I was with that, and how I think every member of the service, anyone who's ever served, has felt, and I think many Americans felt. There was nothing more important at that moment than to respect those men and women who gave everything to a very senile, very troubled man who happens to sit in the Oval Office. And it just, I'm just so upset. But let me, Lee,
The
go ahead.
other reason that I would call for impeachment
Mm-hmm.
is the preamble to the Constitution.
Which part?
About the common welfare.
Ah, yes. Provide for the common welfare and defense. Yes. The purpose of the government. Number one job,
Yes.
protect the people. Provide for the common defense. Didn't they have that on Schoolhouse Rock? We used to tell kids about this on Saturday mornings, telling 8-year-olds, what's the government? The government is here to provide for the common defense. It was so simple. 8-year-olds on a Saturday morning could get it in 30 seconds.
I heard they still replay the clip about how a bill becomes a law to keep Joe up to date.
Yeah, he needs to find out because he doesn't seem to know. Let me do this, Lee. I do want to give some other people a chance, just in case they want to speak as well. And I respect and I thank you, not only as my friend, not only as someone who's served and given so much to this nation, but I thank you for taking the time, because I know a lot of people are afraid to speak up because they think they'll get censored, they'll be treated like the Marine's mom, and be eliminated, they'll be attacked. So I thank you for standing up and having your voice heard. I really do appreciate that.
Hey, it's what we took on the job originally for.
Absolutely.
And sorry if you don't speak up for what's right. It's like that. The murder in New York City there years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Rosalie, you remember it happened in the 70s, I think?
No, I remember.
That all the neighbors thought that somebody else called the police, that they
Oh,
heard
yes.
her being
Mhm.
murdered.
Yes.
And then they've done the studies since then that, nobody stood up and took action because everybody else thought somebody else was going to do it.
Yeah, everyone thought someone else was going to act. She was screaming. She was yelling rape. Everyone knew, which is why they tell you now, don't ever scream rape. Scream fire. People will come to a fire. You scream rape, everyone's going to think someone else is going to get the police. Someone else is going to help out. That's why that's the case that made it, why they always tell in women's defense, never scream rape, always scream fire, because people will come for that. They will not come to help you if you scream rape, which is terrifying and it's horrible. And you're right, that applies. We have to speak up. We have to speak up, because if we don't, there's no guarantee anyone else will.
Yeah. And so, I'm happy to speak up. It's hell. Might as well get something out all those years I put in.
You deserve much, much more, my friend, for all your sacrifices and all you have done. You deserve much, much more. But we're gonna talk more.
All right. Well, you have a good night, sir, and hopefully you get a couple more callers here.
I hope so. And
all right.
I thank you for taking the time with me, Lee.
You're welcome. Take care, Michael.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And yes, folks, that's a very good personal friend of mine, a dear friend who's also a member of the Army. He served honorably and exceptionally. And if you don't like what he had to say, don't you dare make a comment against him. Not on my channel. But anyway, there's been a lot of comments, and I know a lot of people have been saying things. Poppy, I did see some of your comments. I did see you mention that you also agree that there should be charges for treason. I do know that you're upset about how Biden, I think your quote was, Biden admits giving the Taliban a list of names to Americans and Afghanis. It's insane. At every level and every turn of this, nothing makes sense. We did everything wrong. And people are going to say, oh, but you're not a top official. You don't have to be a top official to understand the basics of military. Read Sun Tzu. Just think it out for a second. Why are you giving people who just spent 2 decades killing Americans a list of a bunch of Americans and the people who helped those Americans? Why in the world would you ever do that? Because they promised that they're going to be nice? Come on, think about this. This was 1940s Germany, and those Germans decided to say, we promise we'll be really, really nice. Just give us the list of all the Jews. Don't worry, we'll make sure they get out safe. Would you actually believe them? Then why do we believe the Taliban a group of terrorists? And I want people to remember, and I want this to be very clear in people's minds, Joe Biden lied to you. He didn't misrepresent it. He didn't just mistake things. He didn't just, the events change beyond what he could know. Remember, he told us at first, they were prepared for every eventuality. He told us that he had contingencies for everything. That was back in July. And today he's telling us things happened that we couldn't have been prepared for. Well, one of those two is a lie, but forget about that little lie. How about this big lie? Joe Biden, March 26, 2020, to get your vote, he said, quote, we are so much better than who Donald Trump thinks we are. This is the United States of America. We treat each other with dignity. We leave nobody behind, and we give hate no safe harbor. This is what Joe Biden said to get your vote in 2020. This is March 6th of 2020 that he said that. I want you to think about that for a second, because he did none of this. He lied to your face to get his vote. He did this for politics. Besides the fact that what he's doing right now is politics, he lied to you for politics. He said we leave nobody behind. He just left hundreds, if not thousands of your fellow Americans. And by the way, if he was willing to leave them, what is he going to do for you? Do you think Joe Biden cares about you? He just left 200 Americans to terrorists. Left them and left a list of every single one of their names and a description of who they are with those terrorists. And you think he cares about you? Do you think there's any dignity that's going to be left in these people? If ISIS, whether it's ISIS-K or ISIS regular, I don't care if it's ISIS special or ISIS zero, it doesn't really matter. It's a bunch of terrorists. If ISIS or Al-Qaeda or the Taliban get any of those American citizens or any of those Afghanis who helped us or the British who were there or any of the Australians and Germans and French that are left there, there are hundreds, if not thousands of international individuals as well as Afghani citizens that are in harm's way right now. And if they are caught, we know that the Taliban does not believe in dignity, that any of those terrorists do not believe in dignity. They throw gays off of buildings. They burn women and they burn women alive and they stone them to death for being able to read. They hate Americans by the mere fact you exist, whether you are a progressive, a socialist, or anything else. They could care less. You are an American and they want you dead. You listen to music. Yes, they banned music. The Taliban has banned music in Afghanistan. You can't listen to the radio and hear music. They got rid of that. There is no dignity there, especially if you happen to be American and you were caught by any of these multiple factions of terrorists in Afghanistan. That Joe Biden did it on purpose. He knew when that last plane left, he knew he was leaving unknown numbers of American citizens in that country in harm's way. That he knew the moment he ordered that plane to take off with the last soldiers, with the ambassador, to leave Afghanistan with no intention of ever going back, that those American citizens may never, ever come back to any country, forget America, any country, that they will die in that country. Along with Brits and French and Germans and Canadians and Australians. I want this to be clear how big the magnitude of what is happening here is. He's giving no dignity to any of these people, and you think he cares about you as an individual? You think he's rah, Democrat, I'm going to stand up for your rights? Are you kidding me, folks? I mean, if you disagree with me, please, I seriously want to hear you tell me why I'm wrong. Please explain to me how this man believes in dignity when he's putting thousands of lives around the world at risk, that he has given them up for the dead. He left them behind, and he has given safe harbor to the Taliban. That's when he made the agreement with them about Kabul. Let me come back to the comments because I see one of our friends, Agent Black, who is from the United Kingdom. Hello, Agent Black. It's been a little while since I've seen you. Thank you for commenting today. I know it's a little bit late for you. He mentions government brass media are corrupt. They care only for wealth and power, distraction from election fraud, and the rest of their crimes. They think they've gotten away with it. That's why we are having this program today, to let them know that there are voices across the United States, voices across the pond in Europe and around the world that are saying, no, we did not forget. We are not forgiving you, that we are holding you accountable for this, and we will do something. We will remember this in the elections, not just 2022, but also 2024. We're going to remember this, and we will not allow this to happen. The United States people are the power of this government, and we need to act on it. We will, and we should. I have spoken to my Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. I've been in contact with her. I have requested of her to put in articles of impeachment and for treason, under the term of treason against Joe Biden. And I want to see him indicted and criminally charged with treason for, if even one of these people die, on top of everything else he's done, if even one person dies out of the, quote, 200, which I will tell you, I believe is about 4,000, if any of them die, if any of the Brits die, if any of the Germans die, if anyone from any country outside of Afghanistan dies, then I want to see Joe Biden up on charges for treason, and I want to see him tried in a court for treason. That's what I believe. And Agent Black, you may disagree with me, but I'm pretty sure you agree with me. And I think Boris Johnson needs to stand up and say that even though there is a great relationship, a loving relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom, that this is unconscionable. That Joe Biden, through his unilateral action, thinking that he's like Governor Cuomo of New York, that he has no accountability, that he has no need to speak to the rest of the world leaders about actions on that are going to affect their people, that he needs to be held accountable, and that the United Kingdom censors the U.S. president, that Joe Biden is censored, and that the United Kingdom will have serious doubts about working with Joe Biden. Because I don't think the UK is upset with the United States. I know they're not upset with the United States military. We stand beside them and we try to protect their people and their military as much as our own. It's never been about the military. Don't anyone try and throw that story out there. It's not about our military. It's about our leadership. And the G7 needs to stand up and say, we need to censor Joe Biden. We cannot trust Joe Biden. We cannot trust Kamala Harris. But if we have to, we'll put up with Kamala Harris until somebody else gets elected in the United States that will actually stand up for the people, will actually keep his word, that actually believes in dignity and will not leave people by themselves, leave them behind enemy lines and throw them to the wolves that are the terrorists in the world. That is what I believe. You can tell me, Mike, you're absolutely wrong. You can say, Mike, you are emotional, you're not thinking straight, and you just don't understand. And that's fine. Then tell me why. And I don't think Agent Black or anyone else in the UK will disagree with me on that. Because Boris Johnson and Angela Merkel and Macron out of France, they had no choice. They were stuck. Joe Biden made a decision and stuck it to them. He gave them a deadline and they didn't have a choice. When they begged in the G7 meetings on August 22nd saying, give us more time, let us get our people, Joe Biden said, no. That's not what an ally does. That's not the conversation an ally has. That is what a dictator says. That is what someone who's on a power trip says, yeah, you're just going to deal with it and do what we say. And by the way, we don't care about our own people, so why should we care about your people? And you know what? That doesn't work when you have NATO. That doesn't work when you have agreements with countries like Taiwan or Hong Kong, where we have agreements to protect these people. And the only thing that is holding them together is the full faith and confidence in the United States and its government and its leaders to actually do what we have said. Joe Biden could have said at any point in time, hey, I need more time to get everyone out. I need them to be safe. And I don't think anyone in the world would have said, oh, well, that doesn't make any sense. See, it was never a question of do we leave or do we fight? It's a question of how do we leave? It has always been a question of how do we leave? It was never a thought in anyone's mind at any point ever that, the best way to leave is to give the enemy a bunch of weapons, a bunch of bombs, a bunch of planes and helicopters, and we should leave our people with them as they're running around suicide bombing, trying to kill our people. Hey, that's a neat idea. And if they happen to kill some of our foreign national partners, our actual allies, and they happen to kill them too, oh well. Joe Biden may be the most callous person I have ever seen in politics in my lifetime, 53 years. I mean, I've seen some really cold-blooded people in American politics. Joe Biden takes the case. He's willing to kill people in a way that I thought only people like Stalin would do, people like Mao would do. No wonder kids are running around thinking Che Guevara is great. Joe Biden seems to be taking a page from all of these incredible, horrific people in the world and saying, yeah, let's kill our own people. Because leaving people in Afghanistan with ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, headhunting them, looking to blow them up, to kill them in the most horrific ways possible, yeah, that sounds like the same thing to me. Now, if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm overextending it, please tell me how I am wrong. If you think that the Taliban are suddenly nice guys, that they believe in women's rights, that they believe in LGBTQ, that they're going to be friendly, they're going to help every single American cross the street like they're Boy Scouts, helping people go to Kabul to fly off forever. If you think that's the reality, please explain that to me, because there is absolutely no evidence in the past or the present that that's absolutely true. And if you think I'm too emotional about this, guess what? I'm emotional because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans and our allies around the world who are dying or about to die. So yeah, I am emotional. Hello, and thank you for calling into the program. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and whom may I say is speaking?
Hey, Mike, it's Jason.
Hi, Jason. How you doing?
All right. I don't know. You're having a little lag today, so I didn't know even if your show was going to still be on when I called. So
No, it's on. I know there's lag. Nothing I can do about that. That's the internet overlords.
yeah. Well, yeah. I just wanted to make a couple points. The one thought, the one thing that kind of stood out when Biden was speaking, and he reiterated, was the fact that about the reason why we went into Afghanistan. And the simple fact was, it was basically to, go in there and protect us, from another, 9/11 or terrorist attack, and to take out the terrorists. And just when you look at the state of the country and what it is now, not only do you have terrorists in there, you have very well armed and very wealthy terrorists. And I can't imagine, if you go back 20 years and people back then would look at what the state of it is now and thinking, well, that's how it was going to be left.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I mean, just, you look, obviously you've reiterated, how much, the military, weapons were left behind, and what the capacity and capability of them, is able to do is just, it just blows your mind. And, there's a couple things that were mentioned. I was, looking through Twitter, and then somebody goes, he says, well, the war is over now, so are they going to eliminate the Patriot Act? And when that went out, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my God, it's just like, you think about what's happening now. Is just like our borders, so porous. We're taking in all these refugees that are not even being vetted, and they're coming to the country, and you realize that how unsafe our country is going to be, and then it's just like we think now is this, what has just happened? I mean, we have COVID, where so many of our rights were already given up. And now it's just like, you wait. What are we going to wait for a terrorist attack, and then we'll, be put into a police state, that has, far greater restrictions and surveillance than the Patriot Act ever had been. It's a very scary, state and a direction that a country is going in such a very quick, amount of time.
It's becoming very authoritarian. Let me ask you, and I've asked this of several people, do you believe Joe Biden will, well, first, do you believe it's 200 or more people? And do you believe that whatever the number, whether it's 20 or whether it's 2,000, whatever the number of Americans and possibly others around the world. Do you believe that Joe Biden is going to get them out safely?
No, I mean not every. I mean it's just it's a simple fact that people are going to die there, and Biden's already prepared to basically blame them for not leaving sooner, and that's the narrative that will continue to be pounded through, And then I kind of question. I'm like, well, is the media going to stand there and let them actually get away with it when it does happen? I mean, it already is happening. I mean, it just. And too, is this what the only negotiating tool that the Biden administration has at this point, having Americans left in that country, is basically just to drop suitcases of cash on their front doorstep until.
But they don't care about cash. They have never cared about cash. Let me say it again. These are people that this year were living in caves. Literally, for a decade, for 2 decades, they've been living in caves. They don't care about, I don't think they could even comprehend billions, if not trillions of dollars. They don't get that. We're talking about people. Imagine that you had no more than a elementary school education. And someone said, I want to give you $1 billion to do X. Do you think they have any concept of what that means?
Then the problem is that there's no motivation, to bribe or to deal with them. I don't know. I mean,
well, the New York Times says that they already tried to bribe them. Joe Biden actually went in and told the Taliban that the United States would provide them with economic aid as long as they do not attack any of our civilians. It was part of the deal that we made when we said we'll take the airport, they take the city. So that's why we now hear from Jen Psaki talking about, our international partners, and why Joe Biden says, well, now we're into diplomatic negotiations. I think it was actually Secretary Blinken who said, but we're going to be doing diplomatic negotiations. We have just literally recognized and authorized the Taliban as an international government. So we have just promoted terrorism on an international stage, and we have already promised them money that they don't even understand the concept of.
Well, and another point to make too is that who says that the Taliban are going to be the ones who are holding Americans hostage? I mean, quite frankly, you got ISIS there, and now you've got the Al Qaeda now basically is back in there, and any of those organizations could just sweep in there and grab the Americans or hold anybody hostage.
I think they all are.
Yeah,
I think they all will.
At that point, I mean, it's not a good. I mean, there is no solution to that problem, and the only solution that Biden would have for that problem is basically to, pretty much make sure that social media and everything else just wipes it out, and then that his favorite news, stations do not cover it and do not send anybody over, over there to do any videos or any sort of messaging. And honestly, it to some degree, I mean, I have noticed that it actually seems to be kind of quiet, because we really haven't heard the distress of the people. I mean, you've heard a few things about distressed people who are trapped there, but it doesn't seem to be really resonating as much as you would think if there's like literally, 4,000 or 5,000 people, stranded there.
Well, you got to go to the international news, because if you go by American news, you've never heard that there are British citizens who are stuck. Agent Black will confirm, as I have shown you on Sunday. I was showing people the BBC Vice Admiral Bay, I believe his name is, or Ben, stated that no, the British have left people behind because of the United States timetable. I believe Angela Merkel or the Merkel administration out of Germany has said the same thing. We know for a fact this has happened. World leaders have had to leave people because of Joe Biden. And it's not being reported in the U.S. news. Because if you listen to the U.S. news, you think it's, maybe 200 people, even though just a little more than, 11 days ago, the very same news agencies were telling us there were 10,000 to 15,000 people in Afghanistan. And today they're saying, oh, no, there's only 200 people left. We got out 5,000. Let's round the numbers up. We got 6,000 people out. There's only like 200 left. Wait a minute. 11 days ago, you told me there were 15,000 people. That means there's 9,000 left. And that's not including the rest of the world. The U.S. media has completely ignored the rest of the world that we're responsible for. That's sickening.
The numbers are a complete lie, But the one point that you make about, the other forces that are in there is that, Biden himself, it comes out now and is saying about any sort of American citizen saying, hey, you know what? It was your choice. We gave them enough time. And meanwhile, you got Britain going. It says, we don't have enough time to get our own guys out, And now we're supposed to their government is telling you they didn't have enough time. But meanwhile, he's telling us that he gave the Americans enough time to actually react. It just it blows your mind,
So that's the difference between trusting CNN and then actually taking the extra 15 minutes looking at the world news. As I said, I've been looking at The Guardian, the BBC, Israeli Times, Al Jazeera. I've been looking at TASS. I've been looking at the India Today, which is a newspaper, the Hindustan Times, which I believe is out of Pakistan. I've been looking at the world news for several months now. What they are saying has nothing to do with what we're hearing from MSNBC. And no one sees this as a victory. No one sees this as a victory except MSNBC and CNN, as I showed you, and some of the radical democratic socialists in America, like AOC. They think this is a victory. Everyone else in the world is saying this is absolutely not, and it's not over. Let me ask you, do you believe that, Jason, do you believe that this is over? That it's August 31st, we've got all the troops out. Is this over? Is the violence done?
No, the violence won't be done, like I said, I do question, how much reporting we'll actually see that's going on in there. I think that will have a massive effect on really the Americans, opinions on what's happening there. I mean, the thing is too is when polling came out, I think there was one poll that had 85% of Americans said leave our military in there until every single American is out of the country. And that's why, about the Biden administration is so set on basically saying, well, they wanted to stay, because the bottom line is Americans did not accept that at all as being an answer. They're saying, you stay there and get them out. I mean, when I say 85%, that's basically all demographics. That's the entire, voter block, and that's just, so. Like
because Americans grew up with the idea that we leave no one behind. Because at every stage in our history, when there has been a conflict, we have never left Americans behind. Look at what we've done for our Vietnam veterans. How many years did we go and say and beg Vietnam and work on Vietnam and say, give us back our veterans, even in the caskets? We want our soldiers back. We want our people. We did not forget about them. We have never forgotten about them. And here is Joe Biden saying, I'm going to turn my back. I don't care about them. That doesn't make sense. That's not America, in my mind. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, you tell me.
No, I mean, he completely, botched that. It's just inexcusable. And honestly, from the tactic, I don't know. It's just to some degree, it's just like. There's just so much to discover, about what was being told to the Biden administration, where the conflicts are, within the of who was saying what, and what they were advising, at one point you almost get the impression that, they were either the military or whoever was in the top was like, look, this is the way we got to do it. And then Biden or the administration or whoever was there, the pencil pushers basically said, no, this is the way it's going to be. And they said, no, this is going to be a disaster. And then at some point they were like, well, this is going to be such a disaster. It doesn't really matter what we tell him or what we do. Let's just get the damn thing done. And I think it was kind of, you almost get the impression where they're just like, screw it. You know what? He wants it done. We're getting it done. And that's what happened,
Let me ask you, do you, given everything that has happened, listening to what we've heard Biden say at this point, do you trust Joe Biden more or less with America? Do you think America's better off in the hands of Joe Biden or anyone in the Biden administration more or less today than ever before?
Well, I mean, I never had any faith in them anyway, so I don't really know if that's a good question for me to ask. I mean, you know what though? Actually, there is one thing though, is that at some point, even as senile and kind of like off the rails that he was, put this in context: is you have Trump, and then you got Biden. Like Trump, like there was always things that Trump would do and he would say, and he'd be like say these outrageous things and have these policy ideas that I was just like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. But the thing is that he surrounded himself, with individuals who knew what the hell they were doing, and they were very, they did a lot of, positive conservative things, and he listened to them, and he did execute on a lot of those things. Sure, he did a couple things that were, I wouldn't have suggested to do, but thing is that I would, that's what actually kept Trump, kind of there. With Biden, it's just like you question, you're like, even with him being senile and not really knowing what he's doing, you think, okay, maybe he surrounded himself with people who have some sort of an idea of how to actually make things go. And it's just like, you get the other impression is he's surrounded himself with massively really incompetent people, or basically he's literally doing things all himself. He just like rolls out of bed and goes, well, this is what we're going to do today.
Well, let me debunk part of that.
Yeah.
Joe Biden isn't doing this by himself. We know, and before she ran away from it, we know that Kamala Harris was bragging about that she was the last person. She was in the meetings when Joe Biden made this, quote, plan, end quote, that we have seen come to fruition, that she was part of this planning and that she was the last person to speak with Joe Biden before he made the final decisions and gave out the orders that have led to every single consequence we see right now. And before she ran away overseas, remember, she's supposed to be one taking care of our border right now. And we still have yet to hear from her to say, oh, even though we know we have a conscious threat in the form of the terrorists who have been empowered now and invigorated with weapons and money and opportunity, that we have a secure border, that she is making sure that they're not going to enter our nation. And I should mention, and this is very important, and Agent Black will confirm this, the BBC will confirm this, we know for a fact that there have been questionable individuals on no-fly lists, individuals who have been identified as potentially dangerous and that want to destroy the United Kingdom and the United States, have been mixed in with the refugees that we have received to date, and they have been released into our countries. That is a fact. It's not something widely reported. Definitely not in the United States. It's been reported by the BBC and The Guardian. How does that make you feel?
It's a very scary thing. It's very frustrating, And I think one thing that really bothers me too is just that, even myself, I mean, I really just didn't realize, honestly, what we were doing and what our involvement actually was in Afghanistan, and really until this whole thing started unwinding. I mean, I didn't realize as well when Biden was, saying that, well, they weren't really fighting, they just kind of like left. I didn't realize that over 50,000 to 70,000, Afghanis had, pretty much died within the last couple of years, fighting with, for their own country. And from there, I mean, from what, about 3 years ago, the United States have been really nothing more than an advisory kind of, with
and
the
air
military.
support.
And
air
I
support.
know as well too is that we had such a minuscule force in there that was doing more to just kind of like keep their system afloat. And when you look at it into the context, and even when you tell people or about what that was and how much money we were having to put just to keep it as secure as it was, to a lot of people it was worth it. Because if you asked anybody a question, said, is it, if we were to maintain the status quo or have the Taliban and Al Qaeda now be in charge of Afghanistan, I'm pretty certain a lot of people, if they were asked and they knew exactly what it was, there's nobody that's going to say they wanted the Taliban and Al Qaeda to be the head of that country at this point.
Well, I definitely think that. Let me ask you something. And I want to give people a chance to be able to speak as well on if they want to call in. We got a lot of people calling today, which I'm happy for. Do you believe that looking at the situation as it is right now, what should happen to the generals? What should happen to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Secretary Blinken, and Joe Biden? Should we just walk away from this, the American people, and say, oh, well, we just lost a bunch of people. Doesn't matter. If the 200 people all die, oh, well, because Joe Biden did the right thing. Or should there be some other kind of reaction?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Is everybody? I mean, we haven't even got really through this at all. I mean, it's
Joe
so
Biden
quick.
says we're done. Joe Biden said we're done.
Well, I know, but I mean, literally today, it just all ended. So, I mean, we're looking at right now is that I'm pretty sure the Republicans are going to put together, committees that are going to actually try to look at exactly how this was handled and who knew what, when, and why, things were executed the way they were. And, you will, I mean, the way, I guess the way it would seem to me is that, at some point when it comes down to the bottom line where, fingers are going to be pointed, and we're going to get to it. But by then, I mean, it's like Biden's already going to be out of office by the time we even get to that because he's barely hanging on as it is.
I would tell you that in the middle of 2022, right after, probably in November of 2022, Democrats will execute the 25th Amendment, and they will remove Joe Biden and put Kamala Harris in his place during a lame duck section. They will lose power. The Republicans will win, but it doesn't matter. They will get Joe Biden out. They will put in Kamala Harris because they'll still have control until January of 2023. And they're going to go about business as regular. That's what I see happening. I mean, people can tell me they think I'm wrong, but that's what I see happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say what's going to happen. I mean, there's going to be a lot of different things happening very quickly. I mean, obviously, because of the situation in Afghanistan, I think there's going to be some other consequences. But then again, we still have the situation now with, COVID, possible, future lockdowns or whatever they're going to, try to pull on us.
Second week of October.
Yeah,
Lockdown, second week of October.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we've got massive economical, things happening. I mean, there's going to be the influx right now when the Fed, expires with the unemployment. We're going to see that kind of pan out, and it's going to go farther to see exactly what happens with the inflation as well too. Not to mention the supply chains. They're not good. And I think a lot of those are going to be catching up. I mean, we're looking at from everything from basic household goods to actually food itself in certain areas are starting to have massive problems again. So that's going to be another issue.
Yeah, it absolutely will. It's going to be incredible. Look, I thank you, Jason, for taking a moment to speak with us to let us hear some of your thoughts on this. And it's amazing that the more people we speak to, the more that have the same thoughts. People who have not called in or typed in or contacted us on the show either before or many times, they're all having the same point of view. I think most Americans agree with the audience we have right here, and I pray that the members of Congress and the Biden administration and Kamala Harris, that they're paying attention, because I hope this reaches them, that they can see. Forget what the news is telling you. This is the American people. This is the international community. They are responding, and this is how they are responding. And I think it's universal, but we will see. But Jason, I want to thank you for giving a call. I want to see if anyone else wants to give a call in and leave some of their thoughts. But I want to see some of your chats as we go on, okay?
All right, have a good one. Bye.
Thank you very much, Ben. Yes, folks, you too are able to call into the program. It is 607-242-1582. You can reach us from anywhere in the world. You can leave us a text on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, DLive. Actually, I think Twitter is down completely at the moment. I'm not sure. Because the internet overlords are messing with the feed. They don't like this conversation. They're treating us very much like we see that Facebook has treated others recently. And in particular, I'm speaking about none other than the mother of the United States Marine who died because of the actions of Joe Biden. We're talking about Shanna Chappell, who was removed, eliminated. Her voice was silenced because she dared do what we are doing right now and giving feedback back to the Biden administration, to the leaders of our nation. It's very similar to what we saw that happened to Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, who had to resign from the Marine Corps because he had to stand up and say, this is unacceptable. And we know that the North Koreans, Hot Chick brings up, what is the reaction? What is the consequence of this around the world? Well, we see China is laughing at the United States. Remember, Joe Biden is the guy that they respect. He knows President Xi Jinping of the Communist Party of China, the president of China. He knows him, and he knows that they are more than happy to respect him. That's what he told us in 2020. He told us this to get his vote. He said they respect us. You go and check out the feed on Twitter, because China is on Twitter. Even as they committed genocide of the Uyghurs, they're on Twitter, and they're saying, laughing at America, saying we're not going to protect Taiwan or any of our allies. We see North Korea is ramping up their production of nuclear materials, and they're trying to get their missiles set up because Joe Biden is weak. And there has been no greater example of the weakness of Joe Biden and the unwillingness of the United States to stand up for our own people. Forget about our allies. We won't stand up for our own people. And so we see North Korea ramping up their military. We see that China is ramping up its military. Russia is ramping up its military. If you think this ended today, August 31st, with the United States walking out of Afghanistan, leaving hundreds, if not thousands, of our citizens and citizens around the world, of our allies, if you think it ended right there, you have no understanding of international consequences that we are watching happening right now. And I agree with Agent Black, who left a comment here saying that there should be military tribunals. And I agree with that. We need to do this. Now you can, and I see that John mentions that Eisenhower's farewell speech in 1961 says it all. That was Trump's fatal mistake. He announced early in 2017 he wanted out of Afghanistan. You know what? And I keep hearing people say this all over Twitter, all over the internet, that, hey, this is Trump's fault because he told this. He made an agreement with the Taliban. Here's the thing. I don't care. Let's throw that out the window because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. On August 31st, I don't care who made what deal. Let's forget about the fact that Biden changed the time frame. Biden left Americans in harm's way. At the end of the day, no matter whose fault you want to say it was that we were in Afghanistan, no matter whose fault you want to say that Afghanistan fell to the Taliban in 3 days that we were promised in July, could not happen. No matter whose fault it is that we got to see a second Saigon, just as we were promised in July, could not happen. Forget about whose fault that is. At this moment, we know for a fact Joe Biden and Joe Biden alone made a decision to leave Americans in danger. He left Americans to the tender loving care of terrorists who are actively searching for those Americans to kill them. And if you think I'm wrong, ISIS-K or whatever, ISIS committed suicide bombings to try and kill, just so that they could kill 13 members of the United States, to kill hundreds of their own people, to kill foreign nationals like the 2 British adults and 1 child, that they are willing to kill anyone that does not think their own way. So forget about everything else. Joe Biden, if nothing else, deserves to be hung on treason or brought up on treasonous charges because he abandoned American citizens. There's no way around this. I want to hear the argument, and I keep asking for someone to tell me, someone from the left, one of the Democratic Socialists, I would love to hear AOC. I would love to debate AOC. I would love to hear AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. I would love them to explain to me how I am misunderstanding this, how this is a positive, how this all ends right here, right now, and there is no other international consequence, even as we are watching it happen. I want them to tell me why it's such a big deal, Orange Man bad, when it was Joe Biden, and Joe Biden by himself, who said, leave the Americans there. Run away. Run as fast as you can. Leave the weapons, leave the guns, leave the helicopters, leave our allies. Don't tell anyone. Get out now. That's what Joe Biden said. And he said, and leave the Americans behind. It doesn't matter. Oh, we have another call, I believe. No, Vic. Actually, Vic, you have to call on the other line. Vic, I want you, you can definitely call in, Vic, but you have to call the other line. Call 607. Why is it still going off? Sorry, folks. This is on one of my other systems. Vic, you have to call 607-242-1582. Okay? Because I won't be able to get you. This phone isn't on. That isn't on this system. Why is it still going off? It should stop. But that's the only way. So, Vic, you have to call into 607-242-1582. 607 I'll say it again, 607-242-1582. You have to call into that line to be able to be heard. I want you to be heard. I want anyone who wants to call in, please call in. Just remember to call 607-242-1582. That is the phone that is actually set up for the system so that we can all hear you. But that's what I'm upset about, because that's what Joe Biden has done. And there is no Orange Man bad. There is no other person to put this off on. You can't blame it on Bush. You can't blame it on Obama. You can't blame it on anyone except on Biden. At the end of the day, what am I upset about right now? It's not that we're leaving Afghanistan. Fantastic. We left Afghanistan. I would have liked to leave on the better terms. I think there's a massively better way that you could do it. And I think any private in the military could have figured out a better way to get out of Afghanistan than just run away and leave them all the weapons. I think anyone could have figured that out. But even with that, the biggest problem I have is right this second, Joe Biden turned his back on American citizens. That Joe Biden has violated what he promised us. He told us that he would leave no one behind. He told us that we need to treat each other with dignity. There is no dignity in running away and leaving people to die to terrorists. And if there's anyone on the left, Antifa, Plot, that's the Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Citizen Action, the Democratic Socialists of America, the stakeholders of Broome County, any of the far left organizations, any of them, please call into this show. Please tell me how I am wrong. Please explain to me how it is somehow not Joe Biden's fault that he made a decision and he told us since August 18th that he is going to leave American citizens, and he has now done it. And you can tell me, well, we're going to go back and we're going to get them. How? For everyone who says, oh, but don't worry, we're going to be able to get those American citizens. We're going to go in and get them. That's what Jen Psaki said today. After we heard, and Vic, again, please call in 607-242-1582. Jen Psaki said today in the press conference after Joe Biden spoke, and she came out and she said, we're going to get those American citizens. And I have to ask you, how? How are the British? I know Boris Johnson has said, well, we're into the second phase of the evacuation, that the British people are going to go in and they're going to diplomatically get people out. The Biden administration, Jen Psaki, are saying, well, we're going to make negotiations. We're going to diplomatically get people out. How do you make a diplomatic agreement with the Taliban or any other terrorist group? Because ISIS may have these people, Al-Qaeda may have these people, Lashkar I think it's Lakshar, which is out of Pakistan. They have some of these people. I believe the PPK, which is a terrorist group out of Turkey, may have some agents that are there. There are, and God knows how many Iranian-backed organizations are in Afghanistan right now. They're all headhunting for the Americans that are on the list that Joe Biden provided to them. And you can argue with me and you can say, well, Mike, the Taliban would never give any of those other groups the names of American citizens. Why not? They hate American citizens. They don't care if we die. They don't care if the Afghanis who are on that list, who they want to kill themselves, are getting killed by ISIS or Al Qaeda or any other group. They don't care. They just want us dead. I mean, that's something we need to wake up to. They don't care who kills us. They want us dead. So for someone to tell me on the left, well, they would never use that list that way. Why not? They're terrorists. Of course they would. Of course they would. Please explain to me why you have any faith that these terrorists wouldn't kill us. Why? Because they're afraid that we're going to come back? Joe Biden has already made it emphatically clear. We're not going back while he's in charge. We are not going back to Afghanistan. We're not going back to get our people. Do you think we're going to go back for any other reason? What do you mean, Vic, what do you mean you can't connect? It should be the phone is on. It's 607-242-1582. It's just a regular phone. It's not online. It's just a regular phone. So you would just use your regular phone to call me. We make it that way so that anyone in the world is able to reach us. Actually, give me a second, Vic. You know what, Vic? You can try and make the phone call. You know what? Try and make the phone call, Vic, on Facebook. And I'm going to, oh no, we got you. Here we go. Hello, this is No Soundbites Allowed, and my name is Michael. Whom am I speaking with?
Hey, Vic.
Hey, Vic. I got you now.
Hey, Mike, I'm getting tired of hearing people say this is Trump's fault, too. I'm up on this information. Just a minute.
Go ahead.
All right. Back in April 14th of 2000, speak, outlined what he was going to. Trump said,
Hey, Vic, you're breaking up a little bit.
okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I get bad reception out here, but I'll try anyway.
Okay.
Trump said back in April of 2017, his plan to pull out was for number one, he had a three-part plan.
Yes.
And the one plan, number one was to honor the veterans that served in Afghanistan, to honor all veterans. Number two was to pull out all our military equipment and what we couldn't pull out, render useless.
Mm-hmm.
And number three was keep our airports open until the evacuation was done and destroy Taliban if they did anything to us to harm us. So he had a plan in place. Biden did everything the opposite. He destroyed anything America, any pride America could have in itself under his administration has been destroyed. The man is worthless. The man should be court-martialed. He should face a military tribunal for what he did. He got people killed. That's about all I got to say.
No, I agree with you. I think it's absolutely true that he has gotten and is about to get more people killed, and I think he's handled this badly. Let me ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
When Biden has said that he is going to punish the terrorists who killed Americans just last Thursday, and I assume he's going to say the same thing going forward when, God forbid, 9/11, we see whatever terrorist group kill more Americans. Do you believe he's going to actually do that?
I'm glad. That's a great question. And here's the way I see that question being answered. I don't believe it. And let me explain my beliefs about the Biden administration. when they said they had an airstrike 2 days after the killings happened, after 13 Americans lost their lives and over 200 Afghans lost their lives. He said they did an airstrike on a suspected Taliban bomber, Special K or whatever the hell they call them,
Mhm.
coming in at the airport. Now, this is what he said. But this isn't true. This isn't verifiable. There's no way to verify what's coming out of the White House nowadays. They're covering up so much, you can't believe anything coming out of the White House. And here's another point. And I talked on Bob Joseph today about this. Our military has precision capabilities to take out a Jeep from a satellite in the sky. We can take out a Jeep going across the desert from satellite in the sky. Why didn't we tell them once the mistake was made of letting our weapons fall in their hands? Why didn't we go ahead and use that precisiveness to take out the military equipment we left behind, to bomb the airplanes, to bomb the helicopters, to bomb the weapon caches, to bomb the missiles? Because we could have. We could have done it as long as we didn't call up like Biden does. I don't know if you heard the story today, but Biden was in communication with the president of Afghanistan, saying, "Look, you guys got to falter back on this information coming out and make it look like we're standing our ground. You got to lie and make it look good." And that was coming out tonight while I was speaking to on the
No, I didn't hear that. No, I missed that.
No, it just came out on the Hannity show. They have the transcripts of the conversation because, as you know, look what they did to Trump over transcripts, right? They were full. But let me, this has got me upset. Like you, Mike, I'm a vet,
I know.
and I was always trained not to leave anyone behind. You don't leave your fallen soldiers behind, your defeated soldiers behind. You fight until the end or until you win. You don't give up. You don't call the enemy up and tell them where you're going to be and what you're going to do. And you don't give $6 billion or $600 billion or whatever the figure is to our enemy so they can shoot us with our own guns. Those missile attacks that happened yesterday happened with our own missiles. Our own missiles were firing up on us at the airport yesterday before this ended.
That's the rocket attacks that happened. There were 5 rocket attacks.
3 of them were shot down and 2 of them landed in a non-funked area.
Yeah, just northwest of the Kabul airport. That was on Sunday? Monday.
Our missiles. Those were our missiles they were firing at us. They're using our own equipment. What really, that they must have had a little bit of fear in them, because all those planes flying in and out and near all those big apartment buildings, they could have took them down anytime they want with our heat seekers. They got our heat seekers.
Yeah, and that's a problem, which makes it even harder. Makes it even harder to try and stop anything.
Everything they've got, Mike, everything they got from our country, it emboldened them. It made them more powerful. I saw on a news show where they now have more weapons than 62 other countries, or 162 other countries.
Yes.
Before they didn't have it. Before they were living in caves, and they still live in mud huts and caves. But now they got weapons that make them a world power. And guess what they're going to do, Mike?
They're going to barn stomp on some people.
Here's what they're going to do. Yeah, they're going to go in and terrorize Pakistan, and they're going to get control of a nuclear weapon. You mark my words. That's what's coming down the line. They're going to go to Pakistan, and they're going to do the terror routine there, scare them and blow things up, and then they're going to bring in their military with our equipment, and they're going to capture a nuclear warhead. You mark my words.
I hope not. Oh, I hope not.
And here's what else is going to happen. You were talking about Kim Jong in North Korea.
Yes.
Well, think about the president of South Korea, what he's witnessing. What he just witnessed us do over in Afghanistan. He's going to be wondering, what if the U.S. pulls out of South Korea? There's no reason for us to be there, according to Biden. And the trade from South Korea isn't as powerful as people might think it is. We get Hyundais and Lexus automobiles from them and things like that. But these other world leaders got to be looking at us and saying, I cannot trust America anymore. America can't be trusted. When, this is definitely I don't know, a trendsetter that Biden did. We're going to be losing allies for a long time over this. And who's going to trust us? If Trump were to take office back tomorrow, God, I wish, the trust is still going to be gone. It's going to take a lot to repair this trust, what they've done to this country. A lot.
I believe, and I have an article, it's actually been stated, and there is the conversation. Here it is. I want people to see this. Actually, on August 28th, as reported by The Economist, which is an internationally respected news organization, the Afghanistan debacle has weakened ties between Britain and America. And I can tell you this, if they are in The Economist and they are saying that the connection of the United States and our greatest ally in the world, the United Kingdom, is damaged now, then I guarantee you the G7, the G20, you look at any of our allies or anyone we are friendly with in the world, there is massive damage there. If the British have a problem with Joe Biden and therefore the United States, then the world has a problem. And this is a international disaster. Absolutely.
The Europeans came out a few days ago and condemned Biden for his actions. They literally condemned him in Parliament. They condemned his actions 100%.
And if they don't and the thing is, go ahead. All I was going to say, and they didn't like Trump, but they're condemning Biden. That's how bad this is. They thought Orange Man bad, and they are condemning Biden. That's how serious this is.
Where are the Biden supporters? I want, my neighbor had a Biden sign up in his yard until this week, and now it's gone. And to me, that's a sign that he might feel targeted because he's a Biden supporter. And I'm not saying go out and target Biden supporters.
No, we're definitely not.
Yard signs. Don't do that. But I've noticed a few of them in the neighborhood have come down this last week. And I think one thing that Biden has done is help the Republican Party build. He has. I talked to a Democrat the other day who said, I'm switching parties. I am so ashamed of my party. They're communists. I just don't see eye to eye with the Democratic Party no more. And I like it. I like having conversations like that. The people still believe welfare is a great program, and the medical, Obama's Medicare or whatever it's called, is a good deal and stuff like that. But they're learning, and even the younger people are learning. Mike, the younger people are learning who went to college, and now their colleges are getting shut down. They have to wear a mask, and the 18-year-olds that are still in high school and the 17-year-olds that are in high school, they're all getting fed up with this stuff. They're getting fed up with the COVID scare. And Mike, I was in the hospital 15 days with COVID.
I know.
I was near death myself. So, COVID didn't scare me. The sickness did. But I was on the fence about getting a shot. But why? Why would you take a shot when they tell you got to wear a mask, you can catch it anyway, and you're going to spread it?
I'm not going to, because I guarantee you, YouTube and the internet overlords, as much as they may not like me talking and holding Biden accountable, you keep mentioning that pandemic, and they're going to cut this off completely. Right, they'll delete my channel. And they've already warned me about that. They've already shut me down for a week. They will delete this. So let me ask you one final question here, Vic. Tomorrow, are you, or even tonight, are you going to reach out to our Congresswoman? You're in my area. That's Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. I know she is receptive to this. I've spoken to her. Are you going to reach out to her and say, I want this investigated. I want to see Biden impeached. I want to see a trial for him being treasonous because he helped kill American citizens. Are you going to do that? And will you go on? You mentioned Bob Joseph. That's one of the local talk news radio shows. It's very liberal. Bob Joseph. Are you going to go there tomorrow and say, hey, this is a great idea. Go out. And you don't have to mention my name or this program, but are you going to tell people, reach out to your member of Congress and tell them to follow this up? Will you do that?
Oh, yeah, I definitely will. But I already talk to Claudia on a regular basis through emails and through her post. But yeah, I will talk to her. I'll send her a letter. She actually, one of the letters I wrote a year ago, she took it to the White House and gave it to one of Trump's aides. So she was pretty impressed with the letter I wrote.
Well, she's responsive to the public, like they all should, because they're servants of us, and they're
I get it.
supposed to do that. But I definitely, please, do put that out there.
I will put that out there, and it's already on my Facebook and contacts. If you go to my Facebook, you'll see a letter that shows the contacts.
Good.
And I'm not taking credit for it. Actually got it off the Akshar's website, and it's for Republican contacts. But I copied the emails down, and I made it possible to contact them through my website.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. And I hope more people will do that. And I hope people watching the program are going to do that. Yes, I want you all to subscribe as well, because supporting me helps spread these messages around. So I hope everyone will take a moment to do that. But more importantly, this is about America. This is about America. If you've been with this program, you've been watching most of it for the last 2 hours, please do support us. Share this with other people, and reach out to your member of Congress and say, I will not put up with this. Vic, I want to make sure that if anyone else wants to get in, I want to give them a chance to speak as well. I thank you for taking a moment to speak with me, to let your voice be heard. And that's the most important thing. Okay?
Take care, Mike. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Vic. All right, folks. So I want to, as you can see, we've been receiving many calls. We've had very many messages here. We've received messages for our friends all across the pond out in Great Britain from Agent Black, and there are others I know who are watching this. We have viewers in India, in Canada, in Peru, in Eduardo, I'm talking about you, in Peru. We have so many people who watch this around the world. I know so many members of our military and our police watch this, and I want you to know, I love you all. I respect you all. I'm doing this today. I'm listening to your voices, folks. I'm listening to you speak up because Joe Biden isn't, because the news media isn't. We're seeing them. They're trying to change the message. They're trying to say this is okay. They're trying to tell you that it's all right to sacrifice American citizens that don't need to be sacrificed, that they're going to just throw their lives away because, well, it's politics. It's Joe Biden. He's great. And again, if you think I'm wrong about that, that's what they're saying. Let me show it to you again. This is from MSNBC today. Joe Biden ended the Afghan war after 20 years. That's a big deal. They're happy about this. They think this is more than worth it. They think 200 Americans, who cares? That's what MSNBC is saying to you right now. And they're telling you that your life is not worth it. Joe Biden turns his back on American citizens, and that's okay. That's never been done before in America. Never. It's never been done anywhere in the world. And we are forcing our allies around the world to do this. And as Vic mentioned, and as I've mentioned, the rest of our allies are saying, America did this. Joe Biden forced this on us. They had to give up their people too. They are not happy. There is no one who is happy about this. We have seen more people more angry with Joe Biden than Trump has ever made angry. And he is costing more civilians' lives than we've ever seen before. And it doesn't end today. I wish we could say, well, the sacrifice is made. It's August 31st. We're going to, those 200, maybe 2,000, and I think it's more like 2,000 Americans, they're gone, and it's all over. And guess what? It's not. And I keep saying this, and I will say it again. If there is someone from the far left, anyone from the left, if there is a Democrat, if Donald Lapardo, if Assemblywoman Donald Lapardo, if Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, if Senator Chuck Schumer, if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if Senator Bernie Sanders, if any of the members of Congress, any members of the left, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Antifa, BLM, all of the various names that these groups go under, Citizen Action, Shareholders for Broome County, whatever your group is, if you're a member of the left, call in, leave your comments, tell us how we are wrong. Over and over, I am listening to members of the military, I am listening to citizens, I am watching the comments here, and I see you I know people are watching this program now, and you are all saying the same thing I am. We do not, as Americans, give up on our people. We do not give up on our allies. We do not sacrifice this, just throwing their lives away for nothing. We don't do that. That's not what America does. And that, to me, is treason, which is why I am definitely calling again to say, reach out to whatever member of Congress you have. I don't care what party they are in. I don't care if they're libertarians. I don't care if they're Democrats. I don't care if they're Democratic Socialists. I don't care if they're conservatives or Republicans. Reach out to the members of Congress and tell them this is unacceptable. This is treasonous action as defined by the United States Code. Code 18 USC Chapter 15, Section 2381. The links will be in at the bottom of the show after I am done. And you can say, this is treasonous. He is killing American citizens. He has aided and abetted our terrorists whose only purpose is to kill Americans and anyone else that doesn't think like them. He is endangering our allies in the United Kingdom. And by the way, I haven't mentioned their names a lot. Israel, too, our only allies in the Middle East. I have not forgotten Israel, and he is endangering their lives. He has emboldened all of the terrorists that want to kill Israel. He has armed these terrorists, and they will use those weapons against civilians in Israel. It is going to happen. It is logical, let's use the logic that the Biden administration has failed to use. Let's use the logic that General McKenzie, that General Milley, that Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin have not used, and realize that these weapons are going to be used to increase the global terror around the world and kill innocent people, most of them friends and allies of the United States, and quite possibly with the porous border that we have at our southern border, where 1.1 million people plus have been going through in the last 6 months, that it is very likely that they will come through that border and they will endanger American lives. I'm telling you, this is dangerous. And I see what you're saying there, John, about MSNBC and CNN. Yes, news media loves war. So does Fox. So does all the news media. But you know what? I don't. As a former member of the United States Marine Corps, and knowing so many of my friends who have been injured, who have given so much to our nation as members of our military, some of them ultimately their lives, I don't like war. I don't know any soldier who does like war. Will we serve? Absolutely. Will we give our lives for protecting our nation? Absolutely. Do I want to? No. But this is unnecessary. We have seen this escalate. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a worse problem. Because we have terrorists who have forget the rocket launchers, forget the artillery shells and the artillery cannons, forget the armored personnel carriers, the helicopters, throw that off. We just gave a bunch of terrorists in the Middle East 600,000 firearms. 600,000 firearms with more than enough ammunition to use those over and over again. And we gave that to them, and they're going to use it. And they're not going to use it just on each other. They are going to go, these are the people who want to go around the world and kill everyone that doesn't believe exactly what they believe. And it doesn't matter whether you believe America is racist or not. It doesn't matter if you're a socialist or not. It doesn't matter if you believe in critical race theory or not. They're going to kill you just like everyone else because you believe that women should be able to read. Because maybe you believe in LGBTQ plus AI, whatever the alphabet goes on to. Maybe because you will say, oh, my pronouns are they, them, and they will kill you for that. And Twitter will let them stay on all through that. Twitter's more than happy to leave them on. Facebook will let them have it. If you do a search right now, you will find Antifa on Facebook. You know who you can't find on Facebook? The mother of a Marine who died. That's got to be infuriating, folks, that they are whitewashing this. And mark my words, in a week, you will never hear Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Pelosi or Schumer or General Miley or General McKenzie. You're not going to hear any of them. You're not going to hear most of those names. And you are absolutely not going to hear any of them mention the words Afghanistan. They are going to be silent until they have to absolutely say something. The international media, they're going to be speaking about it. You're going to look at the Hindustan Times. You're going to look at the Indian Times Today. You're going to look at the Times of Israel. You're going to listen to the BBC and the Guardian and Sky News all around the world. You're going to be watching these programs, and you're going to hear them. The Germans with the DW, which is what is that? Deutsche Welles. They're going to all be speaking about this. They're going to talk about how these groups are infiltrating into Europe and they're killing innocent civilians, that they're using these American-made firearms, these military weapons to kill civilians. And that's all because Joe Biden did it. Because Joe Biden left the way he did. Not that he left, the way he did. And you know what? Joe Biden's not going to care. Joe Biden doesn't care because he doesn't care about 200 or more likely 2,000 Americans. He doesn't care about Americans, so why does he care about anyone else in the world? And if that's his attitude, then why is anyone in the world going to deal with America? Why is anyone going to deal with America in a positive manner? This does not end on August 31st. And I know a lot of you realize that. I know you do. Okay, I've been on for about 2 hours and 21 minutes. I'm going to give it a little bit more. Let's go at least 9 minutes. If I get another phone call, I'll go even further. And again, you can call into the show at 607-242-1582, and you can leave your comment. I do see your comment here, Vic, where you noted that it's 33 Black Hawk helicopters. It's 169 armored personnel carriers. There's 22,174 armored Humvees. Over 358,530 rifles. Imagine what that's going to do to the global peace. What do you think that's going to happen with the global stability when you introduce that many firearms with unstable, radical individuals like ISIS, the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda, and even other smaller groups that are looking to make their name in the world? And they all want to make the name in the world by killing American citizens that Joe Biden doesn't care about. I'll say it again. Joe Biden doesn't care. He doesn't care about other people in the world. He doesn't care about American citizens. Joe Biden cares about power. He's worried about the 2022 election. He's now going to tell you that you have to lock down. He's going to tell you that you have to vote Democrat because you're not black if you don't vote for him. That you're somehow a racist if you don't vote for him. You have to vote Democrat. Because it's Trump's fault. Orange man bad. Joe Biden left 200 people in America. Orange man bad. That's the words. That's the words you're going to hear every single time. 200 Americans are at risk. They're going to die. We have no way of getting them. Orange man bad. That's the answer. Orange man bad. Are you kidding me? And I really hope people will reach out to the members of Congress. And remember, the members of Congress answer to you. I understand that they tend to act as if they are some kind of neo-nobles, that they are above regular people, that they are smarter, that they are better than you. They're not. We hear that from people like at the Young Turks, where they say, oh, they're better than the average citizen. No, they're not. 15 years I've been doing political commentary. I have talked to these politicians before they ever get elected. I've talked to them as candidates. I've talked to them as regular people thinking about running for elected office. Not just Republicans, libertarians, conservatives, Democrats, even progressives. Yes, I know a lot of progressives. And I've talked to them all before they ever run for office, many of these people. And I've talked to them after they get elected. They're just as stupid. They're just as badly informed. They're just as hyper partisan and political as anyone else. In fact, they're worse. And guess what? They all have egos. They all have massive ego problems. No one gets into politics if they don't have a problem with their ego, if they're not a complete narcissist. You know why? Because they want the power trip. Because no one in their right mind would go through the abuse and trouble and anguish of going through what we see right now and being attacked by the other side nonstop if you didn't have some kind of ego problem. And that's why they think they're better than you. That's why they think that they have more power than you. That's why they think they can order you around. But they, each and every single member of Congress, I don't care if they're in the Senate or the House of Representatives, I don't care if it's the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader of the House, or anyone or a freshman, every single one of them took an oath that said they will serve you. Their obligation is to you, not to their party, not to their political preferences, to you. They answer to you. They serve at your pleasure. You are the power. The 9th and 10th Amendments of America, of the 9th and 10th Amendments, that is the power of America. And that's your power. So I want you to think about that. I want you to reach out. Don't do it for me. You don't have to mention my name. You don't have to mention this program's name. I don't care about that. Reach out and tell your elected officials at the state level, at the federal level, hell, tell them at the local level. Say, I don't agree with this. I don't believe in leaving American citizens to die, to enable the terrorists that would kill American citizens and then dangle in front of them a bunch of Americans like this is some kind of fishing lure. And if you think I'm wrong, please, I'm looking for your comments. After the show, leave your comments. Tell me how I misunderstand. Tell me how I am wrong. I want to hear this. Tell America this. Because so far, I don't see it. I don't think anyone in the world sees it. In fact, I know for a fact the rest of the world leaders have come out and they are saying they don't agree. That Biden has made everything far, far worse. There should be a consequence to this. There should be accountability for this. Absolutely. There must be accountability for this. We must get our Americans that are in harm's way and bring them home safely and alive. We must secure our southern border. I've been saying this all throughout August. We must secure our southern border. We must protect ourselves. We must double check the people who are refugees. And yes, I believe in bringing in the Afghan refugees who have worked with the United States and their families because we have put them at risk. We must check the refugees to make sure that there is no one who is infiltrating through large crowds to be able to harm Americans. We need to take our time. We need to do it right. We can't just keep going with this mindless plan. We have to think about this. I'm very emotional today. I'm very upset. And I know, and I've been speaking to so many of you. I've been looking at your comments. I know so many of you are upset. I know there are people who are watching this at home, even through the delays, the interruptions that we are seeing that are coming from the internet overlords. And they are watching and listening to this, and they're saying, I'm upset too. I think everyone in America is upset. So let's do something about this. Tomorrow, go out, reach your member of Congress, tell them, I want to see action. Tell them you want to see an investigation. Tell them you want to hold people accountable. You want to see General Miley, General McKenzie. You want to see them resign.